Well, my name is Brent Anderson. I was born a native Californian in Monterey, California, raised in Sacramento, studied in Los Angeles and San Francisco. So pretty much spent the whole first part of my life in California. I studied physical therapy at UC San Francisco. After that, I returned to Sacramento, California, where I was raised, and practiced physical therapy and Pilates for about 10 years. And at about 10 years into my practice, I felt that there was something missing, and I needed more. And some of my advisors and good friends, mentors, brought up the idea of getting a doctorate. And at that point in time, I started looking to get a PhD, and the program that made the most sense for me, that gave me an alternative option, was University of Miami through Dr. Carol Davis. And so it was that time we made a big move in our family. I was already married and had 3 children. And Lizette and I picked up and we moved from Sacramento, selling our home and 2 practices, and moved to Miami, Florida. Got my PhD in Miami, Florida, and that I graduated in 2005 and been there ever since. Well, I used to be an amateur performer, semi-professional dancer through into high school and in the early days of college, BYU. And while I was in my physical therapy training in San Francisco, I was taking ballet class just to stay in shape. And my ballet teacher said, "Hey, I heard over at St. Francis Hospital that Dr. Garrick has put in a dance medicine program and that they have pilates." And I was like, "Oh, pilates, I never heard of pilates." And of course I went there, and Patrice Whiteside and Elizabeth Larkham very quickly taught me that it was pronounced Pilates. And that was the beginning. So it was right in the middle of my physical therapy training in 1987, 1988, that I started studying Pilates and learning from some of the greats. I was really privileged and fortunate in the very early days to learn from a number of the elders in the Pilates world. Probably the first training came more from Ron Fletcher, and Ron and some of his disciples would come up into San Francisco and teach at the center there. We organized trainings with Romana. We organized trainings with Carola Trier. Probably my favorite was Eve Gentry in New Mexico. By the time I met Eve Gentry, it was 1989. And we went to Santa Fe and spent a number of weeks there. And there was just such a great energy. Michelle Larson, and there were a number of amazing people that were all there at the same time. And that was where I felt the vision of rehabilitation and post-rehabilitation coming in with the Pilates work that was so fulfilling for me. We also studied with Jean-Claude West out of New York, who then later moved to San Francisco area, Kathy Grant in New York. We would just close our practice down, and Elizabeth and I, or with Kenny, and we would go somewhere and study and take class and learn from people. And back then there was no really formal training. So I still have some notebooks that have a ton of stick figures, and we would write down a whole bunch of stick figures and come back and try to figure things out and practice them and try to learn from some of the elders. What inspires me today in Pilates? I think I've been more inspired by going back and really thinking about Joseph's philosophy, his own sort of vision. He wasn't a prolific writer, but I feel like the few things that he really believed in, sort of his formula for health and the discipline to be healthy, has by far created the greatest impact in my vision in life, impacting the world through intelligent movement. It's like we need to get people moving. We need to get people to take responsibility for their health. They need to understand that it's not just exercise, but it's nutrition, it's sleep habits, it's hygiene. It's not just physical hygiene, it's mental hygiene. It's getting fresh air and sunshine. It's having a balance between work, play, and rest. And I think that those are the most inspiring elements of Pilates that come right from Joseph and Claire's work, that really have sort of taken me to a whole other level of saying, let's think about what we're doing. It's not just exercise. It is about changing people's lives. It's about You know, Joe said if people practiced contrology every day, there wouldn't be a need for prisons, insane asylums, and hospitals. The more that I work in what we call our healthcare system, which really is a disease management system, I realize how desperate we are to have mindfulness and conscious movement in our bodies, our minds, and our spirits. Pilates to me is actually a person. I know that we've gone to the great effort to make it a generic name like yoga and Tai Chi and those kind of things, but Pilates really was about a person that had a vision and was part of a pioneering time. You think of the great movers where there was Laban and Barteniev and Feldenkrais and Inman, and there was just great movement. Mabel Todd, looking at movement from a qualitative standpoint, trying to understand how movement affects us in a quality of life. And I felt somewhere along the way, going back historically, that we really lost that vision. We wanted to be so analytical and so objective that we lost sight of qualitative movement. And to me, that, the idea of Joe, of that mindfulness and having the mind able to maximize its potential with a healthy, strong body. And those are the things that touch me the deepest when I think of what is Pilates. Pilates to me is a man's vision and philosophy that resonates with everybody. When people ask me, who is Pilates not good for? I always say, for people who don't want to do it, because it really is good for everybody. We've applied it in our practice to people with the most severe of pathologies to the most elite of athletes that have had amazing benefits from the philosophy of Pilates, of having that well-balanced movement and maximizing our mental capacity. Polestar was organized in 1991, 1992, and history tells us that there was a time when we were all sued for using the Pilates word. And the truth is that Elizabeth Larkin, Ken Endelman, and myself, and I even believe Shelley Power was with us at that time, very early on, were sitting around one evening, a little frustrated with the idea of not being able to use the word Pilates. And we started looking for a word that had a P, an L, an A, a T, an S in it. And Ken Endelman came up with the word Polestar. It was actually Ken Endelman. And it was such a beautiful word. When we looked up the description of it, it is the North Star. It's the guiding star. And it's the light kind of thing. And so we felt that that fit perfectly with what our vision was, which was be the light of neuromuscular movement, to be the leader in neuromuscular movement. Our vision statement was impacting the world through intelligent movement. Our mission was to learn all the sciences possible having to do with quality of movement and to be able to bring them to the people in the world. And so Polestar was a little bit more, even from the beginning, than just Joseph Pilates' work. It was saying, let's expand it, and any knowledge, any research that comes and can enlighten us on how to move better and to be healthier and to have better belief system about ourselves and about our divine nature was what Polestar was about. And so we've spent the last 20 plus years now, right, 23 years, really seeking, and we're best known for the research that our practitioners do. We're best known for the science that we bring to the professions that we're involved in, particularly in Pilates. And it's because, we've taken that black box and we've blown it up probably 1,000 times and rebuilt it to really try to understand what is it about Joseph Pilates' work that really does create the miracles that we see in rehabilitation and wellness and performance. What do I do for fun? I think my whole life is fun. So if you asked me 5 years ago, I say I pole vault for fun, but of course, history shows I broke my neck and had a 5-level fusion, and I don't pole vault anymore. So I'm looking for some fun activities. I saw somebody out paddleboarding today while I was teaching. I thought, that looks fun. I could probably do that. I thought of kite surfing, but then again, they break their necks too, and I don't want to break my neck again. So I'm looking. I like dancing. I like moving. I like hiking. I love being with my family. You know, my kids are all adults now, and so I really look forward to times when we're together, and we always do something physical and outdoors, and we have our competition to see who can do the best 100 or the teaser or hang or walk on a slack line or balance on the roof or jump the furthest into the water or whatever. So we're pretty adventurous that way. I'm pretty easy to find. You know, we look like a really big organization, but we're really about 10 people, Polestar, and we all go by our first name at pulsarpilates.com. So, you know, we're pretty open to things, and we try to direct things the right direction. Typically, people that want to find me and that I want to find me are people that are interested in doing research or questions about the science, so I love entertaining that. I love being able to communicate about you know, really difficult cases that people are approached with as Pilates teachers that might be outside of their scope, and to be able to redirect them to people that might be able to help them in their networks or to create and expand their networks. You can always go to info@polestarpilates.com, and that also will drive you to somebody. You know, you ask your question and we'll make sure it gets to the right person inside the Polestar family. Right now we're in 40 countries, 12 languages, through 10 licensees, and I think last count we're over 6,000 graduates that are comprehensively trained. And so we have a pretty big network. We often, I don't know that people really recognize us as being that big of a network, but we have just beautiful people all around the world that really love what they do and love the science of what we represent and bring to the field of Pilates.